mixed forces invaded the Payoff, MacArthur's troops, in a strategically converging attack, jumped from the western tip of New Guinea to Mauretai Island. Landings on the Payoff and Mauretai, the twin drives across the Pacific were completed, and American forces stood upon the threshold of the Philippines. To the men who had carried the fight from Hawaii and Australia to the Payoff and Mauretai, the Philippines had long stood as a symbol on which their determination and hopes had focused. We had lost those islands in the grim early days of the war, and with them we had lost military advantage and a measure of our self-confidence. Now, 3 years later, a large and powerful armada converged upon those islands 2 months ahead of the Allied schedule. Destination Leyte, purpose liberation. General MacArthur had promised to return, and return he did. On October 20, 1944, 4 American Army divisions stormed the Leyte beaches to begin one of the last great campaigns of the Pacific War. To intercept our invasion force and destroy the American 3rd and 7th fleets, the enemy divided the bulk of their ships into 3 sections and sent them toward Leyte. On October 25 and 26, the greatest naval battle in history took place, the Battle of Leyte Gulf. The enemy lost 3 battleships, 4 carriers, 10 cruisers, and 9 destroyers, breaking the back of their naval power. The fighting on Leyte reached a climax with an end run to the west coast at Ormoc. Leyte was ours by Christmas 1944. Even before Leyte was secured, troops of the 6th Army had moved on to Mindoro in preparation for the invasion of Luzon. On January 9, 1945, the 6th Army landed on the main island of Luzon. The people who had existed 3 years under enemy rule welcomed their liberators with unrestrained joy. Filipino guerrillas had waged continuous war against the enemy during the occupation. Now, armed and equipped as units of the new Philippine Army, they fought side by side with advancing Americans to drive the invader from their soil. While the American drive from the initial beachhead at Lingayen Gulf gained momentum, more troops landed on the west coast of Luzon, both north of Bataan Peninsula and south of Manila. Forces were concentrating their defenses in the rugged mountain terrain, and the task of routing them was exhausting and hazardous.
Attacking this ridge directly to our rear, which is about 2380 on the map. B Company is moving through F Company's present position, located on this high ground back there. They're going to pass through F Company and attack up to towards the same hill, 2380. Now, can you give me a concentration on that hill?
On 2380?
Right.
Yes, we have the 4.2 mortars, the 155, 105, and 75, all zeroed around that hill.
A daring raid on Cabanatuan prison brought freedom to hundreds of survivors of the Death March in Corregidor. The push toward Manila went well as town after town fell to American soldiers. By early February, the 1st Cavalry, the 37th Infantry, and the 11th Airborne Divisions converged upon the city. The enemy defended Manila, one building at a time. Battles of the Pacific War was fought in the Rizal Baseball Stadium in Manila. There, American tanks in the infield fired their guns point blank at enemy defenders who were hidden in the grandstands. Came with an assault on Intramuros, the old Spanish-built walled city. On Corregidor had to be subdued. The 503rd Parachute Infantry dropped on the island February 16th. With the help of amphibious elements from the 24th Division, the paratroopers took the heavily fortified position within 2 weeks. General MacArthur arrived to congratulate his men. After securing Manila and Manila Bay, the 6th Army had to clean up the rest of Luzon and root the Japanese out of mountain strongholds into which they had retreated. In the mountains of northern Luzon, organized resistance continued until the end of the war. finishing the job on Luzon, the 8th Army moved into the southern Philippines and in a rapid series of amphibious operations cleared Palawan, the Zamboanga Peninsula, the Sulu Archipelago, Panay Island, Cebu, Negros, and finally eastern Mindanao. With the Luzon campaign well along, and following the seizure of Iwo Jima in February 1945, units prepared for the assault against Okinawa on April 1st, 1945. 1,300 American naval vessels converged upon Okinawa and began the heaviest pre-landing bombardment of the Pacific War. In the afternoon, 50,000 troops were ashore on an 8-mile beachhead, while the enemy played possum. On April 6th, Japanese pilots of the ill-famed Kamikaze Corps flew their suicide planes against our fleet. In 36 hours, 383 attacking planes were shot down. Butler's troops found northern resistance comparatively light, while the 10th Army in the south found some of the strongest resistance yet encountered in the Pacific. The road to victory on Okinawa took nearly 3 months to travel and cost American forces almost 40,000 casualties, including the life of General Butler. The Okinawa campaign had been a highly successful air, sea, and ground operation carried out under conditions favoring the enemy. We had now reached the doorstep of Japan. By the end of May 1945, with the European war over, American military power was supreme from California to the China coast. During the early summer months, the tempo of air attacks on the Japanese main islands was sharply increased. B-29s of the Army Strategic Air Force, operating from bases in the Marianas, were averaging 1,200 sorties a week over enemy industrial targets.